There's just these two small bits that are broken off and they just don't.
All right, folks. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this meeting, the last meeting of the year for the Central Otago District Council. It's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to people who are in the gallery and to the press. I will begin us today with Karapia. Ahore te tahi o tātou, taia te mahi, ngā mahi I taia o tātou katoa. Not one of us alone can do the job as well as all of us working together. And today, as all days of council meeting, will emphasise the ethos behind that particular saying. We have apologies from Tamar, Sally and Nigel. Somebody would move those, please. Thank you, Neil. Seconded Lindley. All those in favour? Against, carried. We have nobody over there for our public forum today. And next will be the confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting of the 29th of November. Somebody there wish to move that through and record. Thank you, Ian. Seconded Stu. Any discussion, queries or comments on those? No. In that case, all those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Declarations of interest is found at page 16. Need to be vigilant and stand aside from decision making when a conflict arises between your role as a member and any private or other external interest you may have. Are there any conflicts anybody wishes to note as we get underway today? No. In that case, we will move on to community vision and experience. This is where people may go, the Mayor has forgotten again that it's not his report, but in the absence of the Chair and Deputy Chair of Community Vision and Experience, I will continue today with that. And we've got an update on the Omakau Hub project. And leading that discussion off is somebody who's not sitting at the end of the table here. Tara, there you are. I couldn't see and Andrew, welcome. The floor is yours.
Yep. So you will have read the update report that went to the Vincent Community Board on the 17th of October, and we've invited Andrew Patterson, who's the chair of the Minhia Valley Community Hub Trust, to come along and give us a bit of a further update on the hub project.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for having us here to be able to talk about the hub. So I assume everyone's read everything that Tara's put out, very detailed report, and also might as well say at this point, Tara's done an excellent job, and the staff of CODC have been very helpful in getting us to where we are now. So anyway, the situation we're at the moment is we have three buildings in Omakau now that are essentially not fit for purpose any longer. One of them, as you understand, is in a reasonably bad state of repair. The second one, which is the rugby club, is serviceable, but for long term, it needs a large amount of money spent on it. And then the toy library, well, if you've been in there, it's very basic as it is. It doesn't have lights or running water or anything, no toilets and nothing. So it is pretty basic. The three buildings, the idea with the project is to put those three buildings into one and then bring a whole lot of other groups that at the moment currently don't have any building or club room facilities together and make it a truly community serving purpose-built building. So where we're at the moment is Tara and the Trust have done quite a lot of work on getting a number of QSs. The first two QSs we came in, one was very low and one was very high. And then we went for a second opinion essentially on those because they didn't fit with where we wanted to be. So we've then since had the two QSs which were very similar but had varying costs in different areas. So Tara has done a hybrid model of the two, trying to get the best fit for the project, which has come out at the $5.1 to $5.2 million project. And that's pretty big money for for our community to be able to find, but it's a building that is in real need. We don't, the current hall, you've probably got some discussion coming up very soon about the state of it and whether it should actually be shut. I think once that we reach that point with the hall being shut, then the community has actually reached quite a critical status or situation, having to need a decent sized building for essentially funerals, gatherings, civil defence, NZAC, the show. There's so many parts that need to be brought in by that. So we've got to a situation where we need it. Our situation financially is going to be a big ask. Essentially, at this point in time, we have got close to $4 million if you count the trusts and what the trusts have indicated that potentially they could provide. The shortfall is in the difference between that, which is between 1.2 and 1.5 million, depending on which way you look at it. So it's a substantial shortfall. The original funding strategy and proposal was that we were looking to get $500,000 out of the community. That was $100,000 in fundraising through events, small projects like golf days and others, and a couple of bigger events in there as well. And then the remainder of that coming from essentially large sponsorships, so naming rights for rooms and sponsorship wall. So with that, we still wind up in a situation where we are between $500,000 to $1 million short, which is pretty substantial. Now, the other concern that we've got in the fundraising area is the appetite for raising even the $500,000 out of the businesses and out of the community, given the current financial climate at the moment. So we've had a good discussion in our last meeting, and in that meeting we were looking to potentially delay the proposed build. So we were looking at the idea of trying to build at the end of next year, but we'll be looking at the following year. So we don't really want to take that to the public just at the moment. I don't know how that works with the media. It doesn't here. It doesn't work well.
Depends on how generous the media.
But the reality is I mean, it's just being realistic. So there has been some proposals when we talked to Susan, your financial controller, yes, Susan Finlay, and Susan was very helpful in giving us some suggestions along maybe a loan from the council. The downside with the loan is obviously it increases the operating costs, and we wanted to try and keep it as a low cost operation for the benefit of the community, so there wasn't high charges and it gets lots of use. And use is the main idea of the building, not to make money. And so that causes us a bit of a problem. And then the next one was potentially a targeted rate, but that also has underlying problems as well. And maybe the only way to get somewhere near the mark is to have a combination of both. And that would also have to happen. The situation there would be that we would still need to reduce the overall price. And we have been doing some work on that. So we have our designer, our floor print designer, he has suggested that there is some room for movement in the design of the systems, heating and the kitchen area as well. So there is potential savings in there. And also we can cheapen the cladding for the initial stages, and then maybe fundraise at a later point to give it a jazzing cladding. So it could be done in stages, but we need the base of the building. Yeah.
My endeavour, it's a big project, and for people like you and your committee taking it on, nothing would happen, so well done. Tara, do you have anything to add to what Andrew said? Thank you. Councillors, questions? Ask you.
If you put it back, the real chance of escalation in pricing, would you not, that the gain that you tried to get is going to be lost by inflation or one other form of escalation? I would have thought.
Yes, that's a very real possibility. At the moment, I would say that potentially, well, from what I've researched, is that the cost of materials is coming back. So there's plentiful supply, but at the moment, there's not the cost of shortage of supply being built into the materials. So that at the moment it's helping, but of course it's the same environment that we've got to try and fundraise out of. So while we might be able to make the building cheaper, we might still not be able to make this.
And the targeted rate will be a Vincent community targeted rate, won't be in Mandurah care. It'll be Vincent. Or district or targeted rate.
Could be as targeted as it needs to
Could be,
be.
if we decided, it could be just the, nearing of it.
When fix the home account. So you can take it off the bill at Cromwell and put it on around with that.
Anyway, other questions?
Was a noise in the room when I was giving, understand what very soon.
It's a mumble. Sorry.
Probably a level of detail that's not quite relevant, but is the planning for this worked out what will happen to the old hall?
I believe there's a report coming to the Vincent Community Board about the old hall in the new year.
What's the status of the land on that hall system?
It's freehold land, industrial.
So I do understand that the council may be looking at closing it and not being allowed to be used in the near future. And I see there's an earthquake notice on the building. I was in there for a meeting the other day. I would ask you that you could consider holding off on that for a bit longer, because one of the big fundraising events we had that you could do was have a last hurrah in the hall. Yeah. So the timing of it, obviously it's too short a notice to set that up for the early new year to do it right, but we were thinking in the spring, the end of next year. So that means that we would have to hold off for essentially a year before shutting it and closing it, and that would give us a chance. And that was a fundraiser. We had identified that we would do a sports calf or some sort of an idea like that, get some Highlanders, All Blacks, that sort of stuff involved, and try and auction off some stuff. And we identified that's a potential for, say, $70,000, maybe $80,000 in fundraising. So if I could be cheeky enough to ask for that to be a little bit longer.
It'll come into the report. So, yeah.
Yeah, we read that. They put us down for a table.
Yes, good.
Probably start
I hear Jamie Mackay is extremely good at posting these.
Available.
All right, anything else, councillors? That was a very helpful update, and obviously I think for the community as well as us, because projects get mooted, they get put up, and then everyone goes, what's happening? Why isn't it happening? And there's a lot more to it. So again, thank you for your work, Andrew, and good luck moving forward.
Thank you.
Someone move the report be received. Thank you, Stu. Seconded, Sarah. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. That takes us through to 23.12.3, grant accountability from the Otago Goldfields Heritage Trust. We've got Ali and Warwick Walker. Welcome back to the table, Warwick. Long time no see.
Thank you very much.
To be here.
For those perhaps new at Innisfalls, Warwick used to be our economic development manager in previous lives. It's nice to have you back in the building. Right, yours.
Thank you. So Warwick's here to just as part of the requirements of receiving a special grant for the Otago Goldfields Heritage Trust. of $10,000, which was funded following cancellation of the 2022 cavalcade. And at the time of approving that grant, the council had to note that they expected the trust to improve its financial resilience. So that situation where they were facing, they had to organise a cavalcade without sufficient funding to keep the staff working on it. It didn't occur again, so I'm sure Warwick's got some dates on where the trust is at.
Thank you, Annie. Yes, and Your Worship, councillors, thank you very much for this opportunity to be here and to talk on this matter. The Goldfields Trust, Heritage Trust, was extremely grateful for the support that we were given at that time. COVID, of course, caught many organisations around the country out in many ways, and we were one of the victims too. It did bring into focus that we hadn't been managing our own finances very well. The trust did actually have, in earlier years, a bit of a fund for contingency, but it hadn't managed itself particularly well over a period of time, and that's been run down, so that when the rainy day came, there was really nothing in the bank to support us through this event. And we were seriously concerned that whether we would have the capacity or not to be able to run the cavalcade, which was a major concern. The Goldfields Trust is, of course, a charitable organisation, so we don't have any other income streams other than what we earn through the fees for the cavalcade and donations and the like. But just talking about the cavalcade, oh, well, sorry, I should just go on about that a little bit. As a consequence of this event, we have taken note of the council's concern that the situation we come into, and we have overhauled the process for the cavalcade and the way that we set our fees. The objective of has always been to sort of keep the costs minimal for participants. So we realise that in fact, while we want to continue to do that, we do need to build in an amount of money so that we do build up a resilience fund and basically make ourselves more financially viable. So we've overhauled the whole budgeting process, and I think we've now got that on a good track, which is good. Quickly talking about the cavalcade, which this year, which is the one that we sought the funding for, was the one that ended in Miller's Flat. It was a very successful event. COVID had moved on, but other events sort of conspired to make us really worried. And I think we noted in our report that just before we were due to get everyone on their horses and the like, we had one of New Zealand's biggest storms ever. The Cook Strait ferries were delayed, and also there was another sweep of COVID around the country. So that made us wonder at the very last minute whether this was going to go ahead, but it did. We ended up with our close to second largest cavalcade ever. We had over 500 participants, one way or another, on the various trails. Together with their supporters and hangers-on, there was probably about 1,000 people involved, which indicates it is a pretty significant event. And this is something that occurs in Central Otago sort of every year. The way it works is that the Goldfields Trust organises the actual trails, but the end celebrations, which occur in a different town every year, this year it was Miller's Flat, are organised by the Host Town Committee, and they organise the dinner, the hoedown, and various other activities around it, and use that as a fundraising event for their local communities. And I was very pleased that this year the Host Town made up $32,000 out of that event, which has going right back into the community. I think they're still working on what's going to be done with the money. Last I heard was to support an overhaul of community playground, but I think they had a bit more money than they thought, so there might be other things coming in there as well. So that's really good news. What we've done this year for the first time, that's something that the Trust wants to continue, is to focus around the host town every year for other events. So this year, for example, we had the cavalcade finishing in Miller's Flat. We also organised under the Heritage Review Programme, which the Trust was also running, to do some heritage site reviews in the general Te area, and identify, for instance, some very good Maori ovens, which I don't think anyone knew were there, which is a wonderful find. We organised for our postie bike rally to start and finish there, which was a very successful event. We also had the Trust's AGM and the field day in Miller's Flat. So this was sort of a collective of activities that brought a lot of good things happening in Miller's Flat in the Te for that time. Just quickly also talking about the cavalcade more generally and the contribution it makes to the Central Otago economy. We didn't do an economic impact report on this particular cavalcade, but the last one we did do, which was on Hawea in 2019, we estimated, and this is, I think, rather conservative, that it brought in about $1.5 million to the Central Otago economy. And that's roughly what each cavalcade does for Central Otago every year. So it is quite an important event, and that's one we certainly want to ensure continues to happen. So with that, once again, thank you very much for your support. It was very, very much appreciated.
Thank you. All right. Questions, councillors? You don't have anything to add, Alan?
Very pleased to see it was successful.
Oh, it was a great day there. It really was enjoyable. Big turnout. Good stuff.
And the last few have been very successful, haven't they?
Yes, it's been interesting, through the rather difficult period we've had, but there's that strong support. It's great.
Germany's had a couple of three challenging years with cavalcade in particular, which is probably, you didn't want to go through again. Is it normal for cavalcade to break even, or is it normal for it to give you a return back?
We try and make a return out of it because we need some funds to pay us up. And so the fees are set that way, but we do try and keep them to a minimum. I mean, if this cavalcade was run by a commercial organisation, the fees we charge, well, it varies depending on which trade you go on, but 700 plus. But you're probably talking, I don't know, 3 times that if it was done by a commercial organisation.
It's just so great for the community, because I know the schools come out to see the within there. It's a real buzz in the mind.
Well, thank you. It was. And just on that, I mean, the community gets lots of support in other ways. Like the food bill, for instance, when it was flat, was about $250,000. We pay out to the caterers for the various trails. Quite a number of the trails are catered for by local community groups.
Yeah.
And so that money goes through them into
Massive fundraising to the Newcastle area school and junior rugby. It's one of the major events. They made $20,000 or $30,000 a year. It's great. Yeah. It's good fun too.
All right, thank you. Again, somebody like to move that report?
Oh,
Thank you, Stu. Seconded, Lindley. All those in favour? Aye. Against and carried. Thanks. Righty ho, we now move to page 29 on your agenda, paper 4312-4. And this is the proposed extension to the Central Otago Museum's Trust Performance Agreement. Welcome, Paul and Dylan.
Thank you.
The floor is yours. You can take the paper as read.
Thank you very much. So the Central Otago Museum Trust comprises the representatives of our 5 community-led museums throughout the network, plus representatives from the Central Otago Heritage Trust and an independent chair. In their 2 years of operation, they've also employed a part-time coordinator, and her contract aligns with the terms of their performance agreement with council. So the role of this trust, as identified in the performance agreement, is to connect the museums, to get them to share resources and to coordinate and training opportunities and storytelling, and to drive the Central Otago District's museum strategy that the sector actually develop themselves. The key to the success of the last 2 years has been about building relationships within the network, and to identify those areas where district governments can actually support the individual community-led museums, because most of these are predominantly done by volunteer activities. The Trust has aligned its activities with the terms and conditions in the performance agreement, and in the last 2 years have been working on to that performance agreement, and also carrying out some prioritised action from that. An action plan I've developed that aligns to its strategy. The Trust is in the middle of a significant project right now, the Central Museum 100 project, which they've received funding from the Ministry of Culture and Heritage through. It's going to be running right through 2024, so they're right in the middle of getting it up and going at the moment. The request for the 1 year additional funding is to carry them through so that they can align with the LTP decision making, and so council has an opportunity to hold off until that question money. 50,000 is sitting in the grants budget currently, and it's been held there until the decisions were made on council's investment strategy. So it could be reallocated to the trust.
Anything to add to that, Dylan? No, cool. Questions, councillors? Neil?
Yeah, just one, so given that the payment is within a financial year ending in June, but the extension of the agreement ends in December, should we not maybe align them?
So what we learned from a grants policy review not so long ago is when we align things to the 30th of June, community organisations have a down period where they haven't funded, because decisions are made, like decisions might be made by council on the 30th of June, and then reports have to be written and presentations have to happen after that. So there's still a period of 2 to 3 months that can be really hard for community groups. So this gives this project is still, it's 50k for year 1 and year 2 of the LTP. That was given out in December of year 1 rather than July 1.
Okay.
So it's just a phasing, but it allows a bit of resilience for the community group.
So there's no danger of an expectation that 1 July 24, that there's going to be funding for that financial year at this stage?
Well, this relates to this financial year only.
Yeah, no, that's
So
it.
that's it. And this was always a trial period, so this would be extending that trial period 1 more year until council has got their own investment strategy in line and where they want to get.
I guess what I want to be clear on is that the organisation shouldn't have the expectation that because there's 6 months into the next financial year that there's going to be a contribution. That's all I'm worried about, saying, hey, that's still up for debate at this stage. You may not get that. And so as long as by agreeing to the performance agreement to extend out to 31 December 24, that expectation wasn't there, then I don't have an issue.
I think I'll add to that, Neil, on page 30, it says it is likely the council's New Zealand investment project will be considered in conjunction with the LTP, and that's entirely appropriate at the start to put that, but as we are leading the LTP, it's not likely, it absolutely will be. So that message can be, I don't know what it's going to come out at.
That would be great. I'd love to take that back.
It absolutely will be. So who knows? But there's absolutely no guarantee whatsoever of the status quo rolling for another year. But I think any work that's done between now and then by this trust will continue the good work that they've done, and stopping now would be premature. It's just my thoughts. There's another view. No. In that case, we have a number of recommendations A, B, C, and D. They're all available to you on page 29, and I'll move those if somebody wishes to second them. Thank you, Martin. Any further discussion, councillors? No, in that case, all those in favour? Aye, and against, that's carried. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Helen. All right, eyesight and information centres updates. Ants and Dylan. Thank you for the report, and the floor is yours.
All from our entry eyesight should arrive shortly as well.
Do you need us to pause? I can move on to something else.
I think she's coming from the other side of the building, so I've got the ability to pause for a minute or so. But
we're ahead of schedule. I think we can just take a moment if she's only a very short period away. We'll just hold fire.
Might give Christmas gifts out in.
Go on.
No.
Thanks, Helen. No, you're perfect. Couldn't have done it. It's politics.
Jason's handing out gifts for you.
Righty ho, it's fire away again. Welcome. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Tim. So this is update paper based on discussions that came to the November 2021 council meeting around the information centre network nationally in relation to the Mandurah and Roxburgh eyesight and the Alexandra and Cromwell information centres that operate appropriately. So the first part of the report is an update on Eyesight New Zealand. They've been through rebranding process, which was funded out of the stat recovery funding and the International Visitor and Conservation Levy. That's resulted in a refreshed brand for Eyesight New Zealand, which is attached as an appendix, and they're slowly rolling that out around the country. So for our 2 centres in Manfield and Roxburgh, that started with some of the street signage and flags, and the next step is the actual signage on the buildings themselves. That's 100% being funded by Eyesight New Zealand, so no cost to us. We run it locally and recover the costs back from Tourism New Zealand. So the signage is underway.
Yeah.
Should we not have one?
Yeah, so Ripley gets installed tomorrow. It's all being done and accepted by Eyesight New Zealand. And I just got a text, an email from Eyesight New Zealand this morning to say Roxburgh's been approved. So that will go up in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, so it's like for like. So basically what you see on the building now is just going to be replaced with the new brand.
The benefits of us coordinating that has been being able to use local printers for doing that rather than it being more in-house. So it's a bit of support for local businesses. The other changes coming from Eyesight New Zealand is related to kind of shared technology or consistent technology across the centres for better data sharing. So part of that's the IBIS point of sale system, which we already have. The other system that they're looking to change from 1st July 2024 is the door counter system. So we've been working with Nathan and the Information Services team around bringing that change in, and that's a co-funded change for us to a different counter type. That'll mean there's a national view of visitation through the Eyesight network, so they can actually look across the different centres and have comparable data. There will be a slightly increased cost in the monthly charge for that for us moving forward, which is within budget. The other work coming out of Eyesight, or key point coming out of Eyesight New Zealand, was originally they were proposing a 2-tier system, which we've given a non-binding expression of interest to be a tier 2 centre. They've changed based on member feedback that process, and they're not doing that anymore. So they've created what they've called an enhanced eyesight. Dunedin and Napier are the first centres that have done that, which is a big internal refit, co-funded, and they opened December, no.
They've opened in November.
Yeah, in November, the 2 centres. We don't have an intent to do that for our centres. And the other part of that was we were going to need to go into a sub-license agreement with Eyesight New Zealand. In the previous proposal, that's no longer there. So there's no need to change our relationship, and we still maintain the leadership of Eyesight New Zealand under the previous conditions. The other part of the report is an update we received in November from the Alexandra Information Centre and Forage Information Centre at the Gate in Cromwell, in that they will no longer be offering staff information services. So they're continuing to offer brochures and information self-service model, but this does have impact on our visitors and our community, especially in relation to bus tickets, which is the primary space that we've had feedback on to this point. With that, we've made contact with the city, who've advised currently they have an intent to seek out an additional agent, but that customers can contact them by phone and email and do booking services online. And then the other part that's going to come in over the last couple of days of that services, where Alexandra and Cromwell had been locations where other businesses could come in and pick up stocks of brochures. So that's just an additional piece that will refer back into our other 2 centres and kind of helping our businesses source brochures for communicating activities and accommodation in the area. So we're just kind of keeping a watching eye on that, on the impact that has, especially on the workload for the team in Roxburgh and Manfield. Any questions, Sherry?
No, I think
What's it like on the ground out there, Shirley? Still steady, busier, quieter?
it's been a little bit up and down leading into Christmas. So the feedback from the operators, half are saying it's really busy, half are saying it's not. So it's very much a state of flux.
Come into January, February though, that changes and we certainly will be very busy. The good news is we're seeing a lot more international trade coming back. So we're, and even in Raffle, we're having lots of buses coming through. And we're seeing a lot of boutique tours coming in from the Asian markets. And I'm not 100% sure if the Japanese ones have managed to talk to you on that. But we are seeing a lot of traffic coming in from that international space. Domestic market though is down a little bit.
Going off on a massive tangent, and it's just because it's quite prevalent at the moment. When you have visitors come in, do you have signage or anything that emphasises food and fire risk at the moment? Because if someone's having a durry on a bike, which doesn't seem likely, but you never know, and flex it, you know.
Yeah, we certainly keep an eye, not so much for the trail space, but definitely for the Naseby Forest.
Yeah.
So we get daily updates on whether that's an extreme or not. I noticed a couple of days ago going into Naseby that we're in very high risk. I suspect that will go to extreme very shortly, we don't get rain. So yeah, that's a daily thing that we do keep updated. We could make it clearer on the outside of our building, definitely, rather than passing it on with people else.
When we do, when we do go into extreme, just something revising, you know, every little bit's going to help because it's going to be quite bad.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, any questions, other councillors? Cool.
I just wondering about any plans to, regarding Commonwealth and Alexandra eyesight to encourage that business back again?
Yeah, look, you can start. Okay, I'll jump in. Look, we are absolutely keen and hopeful that someone else will want to pick that up, and we are open to anyone wanting to pick that up. But it's already made and the decision made here and the decision we support. It's not something that we should be getting involved in, but will help if someone does want to pick up in delivering that service.
One of the pieces we're just working through at the moment is obviously we've still got people who are seeking information, and some of that's coming into other businesses, whether that's into the service centre or libraries or private business. So just a little bit of a summary of those frequently asked questions to help the visitors through summer and in those places. But yeah, as someone said, hopeful that someone will see the need to or the opportunity for them and the business and how it could operate. It is interesting to note that two centres and their decisions have been operating in different ways. And from everyone else, they're quite different in terms of their operation model and they've come to things.
Yeah, mine was actually a follow-up to that, which is quite immediate. And I assume if someone does pick up on either of those two operations that will not organise side branding, they would have to be part of that network as well.
Correct, and the processes that have to seek through the RTO, so through the German Central Target team, so that team will manage that process.
I'm going to ask the next question because it's done.
Yes, it is. Okay. All right, if there's no further questions, would somebody like to move that the report be received? Thank you, Tracy. Second to Cheryl. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That brings us next to page 161. And review of fees and charges for environmental services. Cheryl, that is your paper. Over to you.
Apologies, can I just make a small request? Sure. Possible, we do the voting report first, we're just wait back.
My apologies.
I do think Erin can do it, she's still not back, but we could.
With the permission of the meeting in that case, I'm sorry with you, Cheryl, we'll move to 23/12/16, which is page 4 on the next light paper. Everybody's got that in front of them. Everyone's happy with that? Then box on.
Awesome, thank you. So this is a request for additional funding to match Waka Kotahi budget. I'll take the report as read. So during our 22-23 year, our own budget was constrained by council budget by 512,000. We brought a report to council on the 19th of April 2023 requesting local share of 351,000 be made available. Of the 512,000 approved, we spent 330,000 in the remainder of that year, which went into April and June. This year, the 23-24 budget is constrained by 484,000 or $237,000 of local share. The additional funding would ensure our environmental maintenance budget is maximised and important works and there is a 220,000 difference between the Whakataki and council budget in that area, and the report identified the projects and work that we would like to undertake with that funding. And also our network and asset management activity is also constrained by 263,000, and increasing this will allow us to complete PGOL assessments, the present value end of life assessments around key bridge assets and specialist bridging works, and that also as our funding we use for our network and asset management projects through the year. So I guess this funding we're best placed to undertake these works now and through to the end of the year, and there's a risk in not actually completing this work and these additional rounds of spraying or having some winter maintenance funding available. So I'll hand back to the chief for questions.
So you're not chairing this meeting?
No, great.
Thank you very
I
much.
passed it over to you, didn't
No.
I? Oops.
Thank you, Tim. for
Thank you,
that.
Stu. Please continue.
Yeah, basically, any questions?
Yeah. So, just so that everyone's clear, what you're saying is all this stuff is actually critically essential to be done.
Yes, so I mean, urban spraying, if we were to complete urban spraying, we're going to have green stuff pop up through curbs and different things if it's left, and we come to spray that, and it's longer and not managed in the routine function, it'll die, it'll go into mud tanks, it potentially blocks mud tanks. So there is risk in delaying or not completing this work essentially across the board. So yeah, it would be quite a reduction level of service, but also have some risk to other assets as well.
And obviously target spraying as well too, Tracy, as you well know, causes some broom if you don't keep on top of it. If we leave it, it's just going to compound going forward if we don't keep on top of it. And this isn't the first year struggling to keep on top of it. We've got a bit of climate change going on, you know, stuff like dead springs and more break and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's certainly work that needs to continue on a regular basis.
Anyone else?
Yeah, just in terms of the funding, this would come from reserves. What is the state of our road and reserves? And from there, what this is OPEX. So it's thank you, Susan.
Yeah.
We're talking over a half percentage point rates increase on OPEX, but it's not funded by reserves. So where are we at, Susan? Feel free to come forward.
But we can't give you an answer at the moment. What I would say is that the reserve should be there, and actually, we think about this as part of the perspective rather than just the funding perspective. So the funding is not necessarily sitting in this cost centre realm. But when we look at the materiality of those costs against the risk, I think we can really get something. But the upshot is that we don't have absolute clarity of that.
So just sorry, Stuart, making so will this feed directly into a rates rise immediately, or is it going to be reserves that will need to be repaid in a speedy manner at a time? Thank you. That's all I need.
And just for additional clarity, so an example for the environmental maintenance activity, in the first year of this long-term plan, we had $600,000 to $700,000 of funding on the Whakataki side, $600,000 to $700,000 in year 2, and $600,000 to $700,000 in year 3. It's the council budget at $400,000 in year 3 is that shortfall, and obviously costs are going up. We can do a lot less. We've had to do some quite key safety pieces around trees at the start of this year, which to eat some of that away and put some of the rest of this work at risk. So that top up enables those normal things to keep happening in the same way that they have in the previous 2 years.
Yes. Right, so we'll go back to the recommendation received report, request 2022-23 road subsidy budget, additional $512,000. And request staff to make a general reserves account and ensure they occur in expectations of audit risk. That's what the original, that's resolution the first one. And now we option, start with the first of it to start. Received report, approval 23-24, subsidised budget maintenance. Most of our recommendations of full impact of 237,449% for council. Just move that. So second that, all those in favour? Aye. Those against? Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Stu. And we're now going to go back through Water and Waste. Thank you. Sure.
So we've got 23.1246 on page 161. So we have got Lauren and Cupid. Thank you.
Hi, I'm just very much. I take the report as read, but just in summary, currently we don't have a charge for the initial change of bin size on the environmental services fees and charges schedule. Before May this year, all properties on the curbside collection had a 240 litre general waste bin. So this charge was put in place to account for those properties who wanted to downsize their general waste bin and produce less waste. This was deemed a positive change, so was not charged for. But as of July this year, we've changed to a 140 litre general waste bin, and we introduced a 3-month settling in period to give, well, to encourage residents to give that bin a go.
Excellent.
My short.
And that 3-month settling in period has now come to an end as of the 1st of October. So there's now an opportunity for residents to upsize their general waste bin back to a 240 litre bin. We therefore believe that having no charge for changing that back to a 240 litre bin and allowing them to produce more waste should be free. So we are recommending that we remove the initial change of bin size charge so that we can use the bin delivery and admin charge, which we're already using for additional bins and replacement bins.
Got any questions?
Seems to me, it makes sense, but just in that table of the costs, why would anybody want an additional 140 litre bin? You would want.
So, good point, but when you have, you might have two, multi-unit properties on one rating unit, so they might give two 140s rather than, two properties sharing the same bin.
Same bin.
So, yeah, and there are a few examples.
It just seemed a bit odd, yeah, but right, thank you.
Same value, and just having one big one. But yeah, that's where or you might have.
People don't want to
renters.
rinse their rubbish.
Yeah.
I think with Martin that made me think of this.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. If you want to replace your 140 with a 240, do you get a rebate for the 140?
It's a pop up. So there's an upsize cost of that. But
there is, yes, right. Yeah. I was trying, I couldn't see it looking.
And you pay the 12-month equivalent difference in terms of. So you
can get back where you won and you'll pay an additional 117.
Yeah.
And then every year it'll be 283.
Yes.
How do you make it think about it?
I don't know.
No, it's Christmas. Yeah, just again, you got rid of your red on the beach.
Completely.
You can discount.
So there's the standard set of bins.
Yeah.
Which every property that's serviceable must have. And then you can choose to upsize or additional.
But you can't be outsize.
Or can't get size.
Yeah, outsize.
Sarah?
I know I had a couple of people that when we were first changing them out came to me saying that they were special conditions, like medical waste and things like that, that the bin wasn't going to be suitable, and I've got them in touch with your team directly. But is there a clause in there somewhere for those charges to not be added for an upsize in certain conditions or?
Commercial.
No, just, it was a resident who said they had a lot of medical waste for, husband had a complex condition that produced a lot of waste and they were asking that. And I think they were told that there perhaps would be a waiver of that.
So I guess that's a really challenging piece in terms of
Yeah.
the cost in delivering that bin.
Yeah.
Our contract has to physically go out and swap that,
Yeah.
and we get charged for that. And then ultimately, if the person upsizing that bin isn't paying for it, the rest of the community is meeting, someone needs to pay for that. So that charge is being absorbed by the rest of the community, which I think is probably another decision piece, if we would like to go down that process and enabling that. But at the moment, it's designed for the fact of anyone needing to upsize that bin, which ultimately is around producing more waste. There's, it's the cost of actually physically taking
It's the delivery cost rather than the operational, the one I'm thinking of in particular, I think she was in discussion with keeping the big bin originally, not actually downsizing, so potentially there wouldn't be a cost to be changing because you never did change it.
And we allowed, in those instances, around that 3-month stand down period, if there was, if you were a commercial customer or medical related piece, it was exempt from that through the 3 months stand down.
Right. So they might be covered in that. Well, I know it's something a couple of people got in touch with, so.
I think basically if we find that it's something that becomes a big issue, then we'll think about bringing it into our rates, commissions, policies.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where it'll be rebated, right?
That's where so if we gathered a lot of information that we had to these issues, that's when we start to think about something. So it's like that for that.
So just of interest, we have some data and some numbers around, so obviously this of October, people were allowed to upsize. So we know.
We have only had 40 upsize bin requests, and only 33 of those are for residential properties. The majority of them did not really have a need. It was I think more of a want than anything else, but for 12 of them, it was around large numbers in the household, family sharing bins or businesses being residential premises.
Was one of them Cheryl's?
But it's really encouraging. The number after that 3-month period, really encouraging to see that it was, obviously the settling in process, you go, oh, this is actually teacher space.
For all the chat and the negativity, it's actually proved to be not such a big deal, hasn't it? Which is great. I think that's good.
Yeah, I think once you actually start doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the negative, oh my God, I can't do it. Yeah.
So I guess big thanks goes to the whole district, all of our communities for embracing it when they may not have wanted to, but it's actually sometimes a little bit of change doesn't hurt.
And I do think, I mean, it is stepping in and taking responsibility. I take responsibility in our house because I've had one of the letters saying, oops. Just a wee reminder that someone in the household has to actually take responsibility for,
I think he can't put his glass on them.
Yeah. Actually, with teenagers as well. So are there any other questions? So
We haven't had more compost bins catching fire, have we? That was fabricated, wasn't it?
Look, it's we went back to industry across New Zealand and Australia and basically asked the question, and without an accelerant or ignition source, there hasn't been any reporting across, and obviously Australia has not in their environment as well, but potentially triggered from something else going in the bin as well, but we can't assume.
Somebody's having a go. Yes.
Okay, so we've got receives the report and accepts the level of significant, and we've got B, approves the amendment to the environmental services 2023-24 fees and charges schedule. Do I have a move back? Thanks, Stu and Martin, seconder. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. With council's permission, we're just going to swap around to how it's written on the run sheet rather than on the actual numbering, just to get the annexure pages in at the appropriate place. So I'm going to take us to our annexures. Page 8, item 23/12/17, the adoption of the audited annual report. Wonderful.
We're expecting the streamers to start.
Almost like it's Christmas.
Yes.
Welcome. The floor is yours, ladies.
So take the paper as being read. So this paper is for the adoption of the audited annual report 2023. Since the agenda item has been in place, there have been 4 changes made to the annual document. This has not changed financial information and it is down to words mainly. So on page 12 in the year forward, we've had to print the reducing emissions section down a little bit and remove the words ambitious, increasingly, and remarkable.
It's a bit of fusing, but
Really?
So the only reason that we had to do it is because we've managed to get the emissions part of this measure, the emissions measure, under materiality threshold. And that is a good thing because of the fact that it's unscientific about the measurement. So what it means is that our performance measure for emissions was outside of their bigger plan for performance measures.
We made a plan.
So this was back in the LTP time. So we've done some work around emissions. It's not saying that our emissions work is not good. It's just saying that from an audit perspective, you can't scientifically prove those factors. So therefore, we need to just tone down our conversation and the annual report around that. It's not saying that we're not doing a good job, it's just saying that we need to tone that down because that performance measure wasn't agreed at the time to then go forward into annual reporting. So it's a compliance issue.
Load of.
Session.
So basically, if it had done a different form of planning back at the start on emissions and not knowing what the outcome of emissions would be.
Please don't think this is something that is being highlighted for CODC.
Yeah.
This is something that the sector is struggling with. So we are charged with doing this work. There is not a lot of scientific auditing tools available to make sure that what we're saying we have achieved can be proved. And that's causing a sector-wide issue. And so for some councils, this is really, really, really good. So they be getting a lot more heat on this than what us, it's not quite so material. So we've been able to come to that pathway with the auditors, which is quite positive in this part of the journey.
This is topic emissions on one little bit, but so when the mayor says in his report that we set ambitious targets, the auditors are saying we can't say.
It's because of the fact that we hadn't done that in-depth work in the LTP. So this annual report has to report on where we were at in the LTP. That the one? Yeah. Okay. So the fact that we've progressed, that doesn't
necessarily meet the compliance target.
Neither didn't say that. Now, I'm also not going to take it any further. I just think it's
So the only.
box.
So,
There you go.
so actually, I think we've come to a really good conclusion. The only things that they asked us to take out were 3 words.
Yeah.
I really think you guys done an amazing job.
Yeah.
Dealing with absolute rubbish that we don't even know where it is, so. It's just tasking. It is for everyone in the council. It's not a council problem, it's a nationwide problem. Right.
Anyway, thank you.
That discussion yesterday at the Audit and Risk
Uh,
Committee.
It does, right?
I'm pleased to say that I feel that we've got a chairman of the Audit and Risk Committee that will assist us in taking that conversation.
So that's me.
Don't know how you do it.
You've done well. You can put up with it and look at it.
Yeah, and look, if I may, just on this particular point, Chris says across the sector, I know from my own council, I previously captured that this was a real issue, but like us, I don't think they achieved the qualification. But effectively, you could not prove the KPIs that you were assessing your performance against, or just look at that and says, well, show me the evidence. And we couldn't, and they couldn't. And that's just where the science hasn't quite caught up.
Yeah.
Because use words like ambitious, but how we prove that is at the moment, it's going to be a challenge.
Maybe the science doesn't know it's there.
Next.
Let's not get into that.
No comment.
Sorry, I'll be quiet. Sarah,
That bloody paper,
that's not very nice.
Anything you'd like to add further, Donna and Susan?
Just, not a couple of pure.
It's really, really bright, isn't it? But
Discusses in a little bit more depth of the material judgment for the emissions levies. So it gives more of the what's in, what's not included to show that there is that scientific uncertainty. So that's, if you wanted to know a little bit more, that is, once we publish the annual report, that would be worthwhile to see the report to show what is actually in there.
And I guess the only other probably really big change in it, it's not material at all. It was just a little bit more information around evaluation methodologies for waters and roads. They have, and they are often the significant thing that trips us up in audit, in the respect that auditors have to get a really good understanding of what are the assumptions, what are we basing our evaluations on, and making sure, particularly at the moment, as we all know, when we talk about things like budgets and things and rate setting going forward, that we've been in this environment where the construction costs, which flow into our evaluations, have been increasing at a rate that is extremely significant. So they had to do a lot more in-depth testing around making sure that that's validated from roading perspective, bridge perspective, and waters perspective. So we've just had to include a few more words in our annual report about those valuation assumptions. That said, we have managed to come to you today with an opinion. So earlier this morning, both Tim and Peter signed off the letter of representations. I just want to make it very clear that that letter of representations is pretty much exactly the same as what we signed off last year. So you haven't signed it last one. The only thing that's come into that letter of representations that wasn't there previous is a clause around ensuring that you have complied with setting your rates correctly. And so that's not an issue. We always go out for a legal opinion when we're setting our rates, etc. So there's no issue there. Okay, so that's the only thing that was slightly different than previous years. So we do have an audit opinion. and we are recommending that you sign off the annual report. The audit opinion has, a couple of emphasis on matter. And one of those is completely out of our control. Or probably both of them are actually out of our control. One is the uncertainty over the water services reform program. So councils will all be getting this matter of emphasis. The other one is exactly what we've just been talking about, is the inherent uncertainty around the measurement of emissions trading. So basically, the annual report is, as it stands, really free for adoption.
So, question.
Yes, Stu.
An emissions trading, is that the council business or the council ratepayer? Like, is it the running of the electricity here
No, it's a
and
council
the
business.
business only?
They're council business.
And having large chunks of parks and recs and land doesn't offset, is we're administrator of council business?
We don't do to that extent at the moment. So it's about making sure that things like when we renewed the formula, that it was done in the right sustainable manner. If we're doing anything with heat exchange, etc., the polls, it's about making sure that we're doing it in the right sustainable manner. So it's not, so we're quite focused at the moment about what can we do, and as time goes on, we'll come out to, you know, the wider what can we do, and then the wider what the community can do.
And you make a valid point though. I mean, I think this government will look at sequestration on farms to bring that into the equation. That, well, what that would mean for us is we could use sequestration on our main highways.
Yeah.
And so it might be a slightly different dynamic, but that has to work.
I mean, it makes it hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have to go to.
Any further questions? Comments?
I'm still expecting.
I'm going to hold my comments back because I could comment in the negative, but I want to comment in the positive, which is to thank you and your team for the extra effort and the extra patience that you have shown in getting the report to us today. And the frustrations that you've had, frustrations that we've had, that getting it there may be a topic for another day. Is obviously we still have a lot of work to come with the organisation that we're dealing with over the next few months, which is primarily why I'm holding my tongue. With that in mind,
Last time we didn't help us,
well, look,
with my recollection.
yeah,
Might not the future, they make life even more difficult for us.
there are ways and means of expressing your displeasure, and we'll go through a number of those before we do it publicly, perhaps. Anywho, I'm again grateful and thankful to you and your team, and with that in mind, I'll move A and B. Somebody will second it. Neil, any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Against, and that is carried. Thank you very much.
You have a holiday now?
Yeah.
We're probably sticking.
And having to speak with
Claws out there giving out the chocolates.
Is it going to be miniatures?
You haven't got enough places, have you?
Yeah, I've got a little bag for
It probably was. Yeah, I know she.
Good morning, everybody. This is a pretty great paper requesting 2 items of unbudgeted expenditure, so I'll take each one in turn. The first is our insurance renewal. As you'll see from the paper, it has increased significantly again this financial year. Susan and I had a really good look at it. We talked to our broker around some options to change excess levels. And there was little benefit to be gained from doing that, particularly the material damages that you'll see in the paper has been one of the biggest drivers. You'll see that we have changed our motor vehicle provider. We do have a high ratio of windscreens that need replaced in this council. We are going to do some further comms in the new year around that. We were lucky that we managed to change our insurer because our current one quoted us quite a hefty increase. So it's something that we do need to keep quite an eye on. The other thing in relation to the insurance, We have looked at an item of self-insurance. I think this is a topic that we need to come back to next year more broadly, as self-insurance for maybe some more items. But if you're in agreement today, we do have a life insurance plan now, which is a relatively small payout due to terminal illness. Costs us approximately $12,000 a year. With the CEO, we took a look at the level of cover, and we think this is one that we could easily stop the premium on and pay it from vacancies that we hold at any one time. So that's the key sort of highlights from insurance. The other item, unfortunately, is something that is hitting a few councils. So this is our liability to risk pool. So what that's around is that many years ago, we were part of a joint insurance fund. It did get wound down in 2017. More claims were coming in than they obviously kept covering the premiums. And they have had some recent claims in Napier, the Leaky Homes has been a big claim on them. You'll see that there is a request for just over 71,000, nearly 72,000 in this paper to cover our liability for the period up to the 07, 08, 09 year. We're not sure if there'll be further claims. There may well be. We have consulted a lawyer, and unfortunately, it looks like our hands are bound with that.
So this is where most councils subscribe to this. And it was primarily around leaky homes. And it's only now that those claims are coming to fruition.
Happy days.
Any questions?
On the insurance, hindsight was really the question I'm asking. Would it have been wise for us to make a provision for those liabilities? Or at that time, respond, yeah. When we talk about this time and say, well, what's the point? We don't know, is the cross that bridge we come to.
Look, that's one that's on the outside my
because
because we weren't, well, last time I was here, we weren't paying out fully recovered. So but I guess it's a bit of the unknown. I mean, even having this claim now, then what are we going to forecast in the future?
Do we know what our future liability is potentially for 2009 through into 2017? No, we don't know that. No. So you couldn't budget for it. No. So can we find out? Well, that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
And when are we going to get the information?
Yeah, and all councils, we got a letter of claim before I left my previous roles. So, I mean, it was a good thing at the time because, you know, commercial insurance wouldn't touch it. Yeah. So councils all agreed. Yeah. And now it seemed and it probably was a good idea at the time, but it has been wound down because, you know, the exposure. But now, as these things make their way through the system and they pop out at the end, you know, that was an arrangement we all entered into, and so we're all obligated by it. So, but we could not tell you what the future prospects are on this for that last decade that we're still on the hook for. But it is a topic of interest amongst chief executives when they get together, as is insurance for June.
Interesting, there's only 3 councils that didn't partake in this.
Yeah, I don't know why that was.
Yeah, how did they do that? How were they so lucky? Well, unlucky.
We didn't really have a lot of trust in.
No, thank you.
I've got a question, but I'll do a comment first, and that's just, you know, I've prefaced the public with the costs increases and rates that we can't avoid, and that insurance increases a 0.5 percentage rates increase right there. And we don't have a choice. We do. Like any homeowner, we could not insure, but we have to be prudent.
We would.
I mean, it just couldn't.
We'd have to insure.
I think there would be something that was.
So the audit might find something wrong.
Yeah, the auditors might find it, something wrong.
Yeah. We couldn't just pull our insurance.
No,
we
don't have a choice. The question I had was just in terms of the recommendations and whether the change in what we're doing, moving to self-insurance and the staff side of things, do the recommendations capture that enough? Are you comfortable? It says accommodate the insurance premium renewals as outlined in the paper. It doesn't really talk about
Or is that just a management decision that we don't need to?
Well, because if we were putting the staff insurance in, there'd be another 12,000 on that. So I suppose B is implying that we don't spend that 12,000, but if council is comfortable.
We should flesh out the-
I think we should flesh out.
But also it is kind of a management.
Or if it, yeah, well, that was another question, it's probably within, well, it will be, so.
Well, we're self-insuring in that sense, so we continue with insurance, but it's a self-insured obligation as opposed to.
So the question for you, Paul, is you're comfortable
Yeah.
moving ahead without any extra wording here?
Yeah.
Yep, that's fine. Okay. Any further questions, team? Someone want to move A, B and C? Thank you, Martin. Tracy, seconded. No further discussion. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much. We're running slightly ahead of schedule and the timing of lunch was quite important today because it probably isn't cooked yet. So we will keep moving on and
We'll go get it now.
Alex, I see you were here. Well done. Thank you for who has organised that. Yes. We now move to page 165, which is 2312.7, our significance and engagement policy. Welcome, Alex and
Kia ora e te whare, e aku rapatira, meni kura significance and engagement policy is I think the first one up on our required LTP policies, and we're looking for it to go out to consultation. It's part of our comms suite, which includes the media policy and the community development strategy, but this one is the legislatively required piece of work. We haven't changed a huge amount since the last version of the policy. We have added a reference to climate change in the objectives to meet with the overall theme of the LTP. We've checked the policy with our partners in Ōkaha and accordingly added some references to Māori participation, including the future creation of a Māori participation framework that reflects how we engage with Māori. And we've added some portions on informal engagement. That's work we've been doing nationally as part of an engagement code of practice that sees that some members of our community don't always participate best in hearings. So it gives us space to seek consultation and seek views and engage out in public where the people are in town halls and things like that. We've replaced the 3-step process that existed in the old policy with a new 4-step process, and that was really just to tidy up the language of that process. There's a few requirements of the Act, such as publishing reports of the meetings on the website, and the new 4-step process reflects those specific steps. Back to you.
Thank you. Questions, councillors? I just had one, and it's probably me being a pedant, which I have rightfully been accused of many times in the past. We've gone from, I'll just get myself to the right place because I'm on the policy, which doesn't give me the change. So I'll go to the actual paper. We've gone from determining significance and then determining engagement as required to determining significance to determining the level of engagement. I'm presuming one of the levels of engagement is no engagement, which is deciding whether the engagement is required.
It is, it's in the bottom of page 4, deciding not to engage, and that's really a language consideration that was to reflect in accordance with the Ombudsman's requirements of transparency that we default to more open forms of engagement, but deciding not to engage is a valid part of that. Yeah, page 173 of the agenda is where that starts.
Yeah. Well, that would be the case. I just wanted to probably highlight it in the public domain.
So just an observation perhaps that might lead to a question depending on where I go. I read the policy and it's pretty broad, gives us scope, but most importantly provides us with the things we need to consider to make that call. And then it's going to come down for us to actually have a robust discussion around that. And it becomes then really important that in the reports that we get, that this is something that's actually given quite a bit of focus. Because it would be very easy to give it a once over lightning and for us to miss it at a governance level. So I think the key thing for me says that actually we're going to make sure on the reports that are done, I'm not saying it's not the case, but that actually there's a real diligence applied to that particular part. Because I would be as bad as anybody else saying, no, we can just do it, fine. But I'm pleased to see this gives a scope for the report writers in particular to head down that path that if they think it's important. Equally, if they don't, councillors may choose to go down that path if they think it's important. And that's because I think previous versions of this were quite, what's the word, bullet pointed. And there was no stuff. So, so the improvements you've made just to make it a better and living document, I think makes sense to me. I guess for me, it's really important that the report writers use it to its extent, because we as government should also do the same.
I would agree very strongly with you, and I see the evolution of this policy to go pretty aligned with that appendix 1 that has those 5 different levels of engagement for each project to set which of those they have, and to come to you quite early on in the project and say which piece on the engagement spectrum they're following and where those engagement levers will be used.
And the big one for me that comes to mind is financial. And as we're heading into an LTP where that's going to be bigger than ever, it's the single big one for me. It says that we really need to focus on and be really cognizant and to come to us about what those implications are, and particularly for the people actually that pay the bill. But and I'll finish it off because people say, let's get on and get it done, and don't quite appreciate the implications of what they just said. And we can take that and say, they told us to do it. We did that.
Yeah. Anybody else? No, thank you. Anyone want to move A and B?
Yeah.
Thank you, Neil.
Please.
Sarah, second that. Any further questions or comments? No? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Charles. Geordie. Welcome. Thank you, Ellen. And Saskia.
You left it on there because you didn't want.
Freedom campaign. I don't think it's a conflict, but I will just note that I'm, as far as I'm aware, still a member of the ministerial working group on freedom, responsible campaign. We haven't had a meeting since the last election, and 3 of the 4 elected members are gone, but nobody's told me I'm off it. And I have asked.
I'll give you a break it and so you had a camper van without a toilet.
I can't see how you can be conflicted when you've done nothing.
I haven't done anything since.
We're talking about freedom camping now, Neil.
Over to you two, please. You 3, please.
Okay, thanks. So, we've been this, we had a little update a few months ago, so I'm back. So in June, this year, the self-contained vehicle legislation became law, and it included amendments to the Freedom Camping Act. As a result, non-certified self-contained vehicles cannot camp on council land as of last Friday unless council has designated a space for them to camp in. Certified self-contained vehicles can camp on council land unless council has restricted that under a bylaw or a reserve management plan. And we said that there is a transition period between when the current blue sticker, which everybody is familiar with, many not really warranted professionally, and the new green sticker, which has to be warranted professionally through the gas fit, Plumbers and Gas Fitters Association, we come up with and a detailed pattern report. So timeframe for rental vehicles is different to those that are privately owned as well. So that complicates how we could infringe those who are not complying with the law. And there are several options for council to do the enforcement if they want to without bylaw, and that's under the on reserves, under the Reserves Infringement Prevention Regulations, and also under the Freedom Camping Act itself for non-certified or non-complying vehicles. Without a bylaw, we may see certified vehicles on land we don't want to see them on, streets, roads, other council land, for example, over the summer. We're not sure how that'll go. We've not seen that in the past in a particularly big way. And under section 155 of the Local Government Act, before developing a bylaw, council must determine whether the bylaw is the most appropriate way of dealing with or addressing a perceived problem. So in this case, that's camping in the wrong places. Data on complaints of freedom camping since 2019, when we started collecting the data, and that's when that coincided with when the
government provided assistance as well for that. That's outlined in detail on page 7 of the attached report. But that indicates 40% of complaints related to non-council owned land. The rest were on council land mainly around rubbish and length of stay, etc. It wasn't really around people camping in the wrong spots. That's just what they were doing. They were camping in some other spots as well. And this on its own is unlikely to reach our threshold required to determine whether we should go with it at this stage or not. And given the changes to the Act and the changes to the requirements camping at Lake Dunstan by Lynn's, they're now restricted who can camp on what site. So in Lowburn, you can't camp. You've got to be certified to camp there, and in Bendigo and Tampine Gully, we are not certified at this stage. So that's what's been happening, but they've changed what Lowburn used to be like last season, and I'm not quite sure how it's pleased at this stage. I'm suggesting we probably don't have enough evidence at this stage to develop a bylaw, but it would be useful to monitor over the summer to see if we're getting any effects that can, or any issues that we can use to help us determine whether a bylaw is required or not. And in the interim, we do have some mechanisms we can control the odd recidivist camper if we need to, although we're not really set up at this stage to do too much of that to an enforcement provisions under this act. They're quite detailed, and we don't have all those cases at this stage. You want to say anything more?
No, you covered the.
Okay, so you haven't answered any questions on that.
I thought, I'm sorry, just that, as Councillor Ali's not here, this was a point of discussion with the the Destination Advisory Board, the recent meeting, and concern around is that likely volume that we have experienced in recent time due to open borders and access being much broader than it has been in recent time.
Neil and then Jason.
Would there be an appetite from the members to add a recommendation that would encourage the Commissioner of Crown Lands to actively, well, first of all, to advise how he intends to actively enforce the legislation on the Lynn sites in our district? And because, well, really, I'd love to be able to say, make it happen, but that's probably going a bit too far, but just seek the Commissioner's plan for how they're going to enforce their regulations. Because as Gordy said, traditionally, well, actually Gordy didn't say, so I'll say this, traditionally they are not good at it. So is there any appetite for that? And is it going to make a blind bit of difference, or at least we've tried? Because what's going to happen, we're going to get people coming back to us again. This season's the first one in 4, where we're going almost back to the new normal, or the old normal.
The old normal.
Yeah, we've got camper vans, we've got the vans all around the place. And we know what happened last time. No enforcement. We helped out some eventually because we got some money from another government partner to do it. That's not there anymore. Rubbish bins, all those things. I think we're going to cop them in the neck.
Would that letter be of use if it came from you folk, but says council has asked that we, or as Neil put it, won't make a blind bit of difference.
Won't make anything.
Yeah, in this current climate, when this government's looking to save 6.5%, they'll be looking at Lynn's to say, well, you know, I mean, and all in the mix. We could write a letter, we could send it. Would anyone respond other than just acknowledge receipt of it?
You're lucky they did that.
I sent an email to Lynn's the other day about fire risk and got told they'd be back within 48 days.
Yes, fire.
So, although to be fair, once I got a person's address, the matter's been dealt with swiftly.
Not yet.
Ish.
And
Just Monday.
Lynn's no longer use couriers, so we did have a really good contact. Rose Quirk was fantastic to deal with.
I can give you the new contact.
Got several things.
Have you got several?
Yeah.
Okay, so listen, just to think more about what happened to us, and we can say that we have tried. We've discussed it. We were if someone wants to have some communication with the Commissioner, I would encourage it to take place.
I'll do that. Yeah.
We don't need that minute, or put as part of the motion.
Not as part of the motion, but just, might be something that happens, and I'll certainly have other channels where I'll be hopefully getting on and we'll encourage you as well. Good on you.
The only comment I would make is that as part of the working group on this was not how we would have liked things to have moved along. I think it would be fair to say. I'll just leave it at that. We don't have, like, my inbox was full in the summer of 16-17, this first year is near, with freedom camping complaints. I can't recall the last one I had. So either people got used to it or the system that we had was working. I think it's a combination of both of those. I think we might have some significant problems this year, but as you say, we can't really act until we have them, so it might be a bit of a white knuckle right. But secondly, I think that there's going to be a bit of a bedding in process, and if we did pass the bylaw, we'd have to review it anyway, but we would take a lot of lessons away from ourselves, and in this case, we can take from other councils who have one in place how they're going to work under this new act. And also, I think there's still a draft one being produced by LNZ to come out, which obviously haven't seen.
Also, I did hear from another, this is well the name now, I'm going to say this, another sort of camping group who have suggested in an email to many people that new government might repeal some of this changes. So, I haven't heard that officially through their manifesto, but there's another group that thinks that they've heard that. So who knows where it's going to land.
Yes, I think come the middle of January and there's problems, everyone will say, well, you've done nothing but sit on your hands, but we haven't sat in our hands. The situation kept moving around us, and if we had drafted a bylaw 6 years ago, when I was saying, right, we got a bylaw, it would have been useless and outdated within a couple of years, at huge cost and consultation and everything else. And I think we're sitting in exactly the same space now. So we just have to wait and see. My view.
You don't know why, no? Okay.
Anyway, any further comments, questions, team? I'll move A, B, C, D, and E. Martin's happy to second it. Nothing further? All those in favour? Aye, and against, carried. Thank you very much for your work in that space, and I suspect all the work to come in that space. Just to take us through to lunch, I'll do my mayor's report, but we'll probably get through the end of the meeting. I'll do my mayor's report, which I'm just doing verbally this time, simply about 2 weeks since our last meeting, so things that have come along in that time. Our fire risk is not written as extreme yet, but we've had, I've just been told, 7 grass fires in the last very short period of time. Obviously a major one up by the Clyde Dam, and others around the place. We are in a hell of a position, and I'm, as the person who will sign the declaration, extremely nervous about this summer to come. Stu and Neil, obviously being fire brigade members, will also be extremely nervous. So just as mayor, asking the community to please be cautious. Don't let off fireworks, for goodness sake. New Year's, just no. No. And, you know, cigarette butts out the window, lighting campfires, etc. It's not fun and games. These gentlemen and many others in our community, men and women, put their lives on the line fighting these fires, and property damage and everything. I am very nervous about it, so please, I hope the community will take heed. We've just been advised today of an absolute upswing in vandalism in our public toilets, and extreme vandalism, not just a little bit, but the likes of hand dryers being pulled off the wall and smashed into the tile floors. The mentality of people who do that is a bit beyond me. The consequence, though, that we may have to look at, we're not looking at yet, but we may have to look at if it doesn't stop, is that we close our toilets at night, which will come as extreme discomfort to people who travel through the night, who work through the night and so forth. So I just hope that it stops. The police have been notified, but obviously they can't be everywhere at all times. But it's really, really disappointing that when you provide a absolutely essential, I'd say, community service, and it's happening in Alexandra and Cromwell, so it's not, I can't say one person's doing this, or if it is, they're going to extreme lengths. To have that happen is a great disappointment as mayor of this community. And the final thing is just to update on the future by local government. I sit on the advisory group with LGNZ. And we had a special general meeting of LGNZ on Monday where I had the privilege of seconding the motion to approve 5 separate pieces of work to take forward to this government and future governments. Essentially, the question was, will local government New Zealand pick up, or actually will the local government sector through local government New Zealand pick up the work of the 2-year work of the future for local government panel and run most of it, which we have of the 5 topics that were put up. 3 of them passed by well over 90%, 1 of them passed by well over 80%, the other one passed by around 75%. So very good consensus program that was put. If Tony was here, I thank her again for her work into making that happen. But it was a great step forward, I think, because we all know, and yeah, as we talk about things such as LTPs and rate rises and so forth, that the system we have for funding alone is broken. And we need to look at the whole system. And as a sector, local government New Zealand has to look at the whole system and have the courage to look at itself alongside the government saying, hey, you need to look at yourself, because if we break, the problem will be yours. Any questions, comments? Happy to take them.
Just adding on to your fire thing, Tim, I think it's a really, you've been very good at it. Our volunteers in our community are amazing. And when these things go wrong, they will go wrong, we'll have fires. We've got amazing volunteer groups, especially in all corners of this wonderful region. And they give up a lot of time for trainings and first aid, St John's, fire brigade and that. So hopefully we don't get really big fires, but it does take a big toll on a lot of volunteers. They get paid for it. Something
I'm saying.
I can only endorse what Stu's saying. The toll on volunteers is huge, and they've got every right to be at home enjoying their Christmas break as anybody else. So, you know, as you said, things like fireworks are just ridiculously stupid this time of the year. Encourage anybody, and if you have any inquiries about fires, rural fires, what the rules are, there's a really good website called checkitsalright.co.nz, which is a Defence website where you can look up and find out when you can light a fire and what action you can actually do. This district's currently in a restricted fire season, which outdoor fires are only able to happen by permit. I'd expect by the very near future, if not the weekend, will be in the prohibited season. That does still mean that some fires are able to be lit, generally, you know, to be kept barbecues and those sort of things. But yeah, for people to use that checkitsalright.co.nz website it's really informative and has some good information. But you just think about your actions. Because what's worse is what it's not just the property damage, it's the risk to human life as well. And it becomes quite real, you know. Helicopter was buzzing around transmission lines on Saturday evening. You know, that's not a good thing to be doing. Those guys did a pretty good job to stop that. And yeah, so it's a hobby horse of one, as you all know. So maybe some fire risk might be getting sorted out around the lake. Got some jobs soon.
Absolutely. Right, I'll move my report. Yep. Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. On to the next item, which is page 207, the minutes of the Vincent Community Board meeting from 29 November 2013. Anybody got any issues with just moving those? Thank you, Neil. Second, Tracy. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Our next meeting is next year, the 31st of January 2024. Noting that, I'm going to move a resolution to exclude the public. But I do that before I do that, just like to thank Shannon for coming along today and coming along so consistently. We're lucky to have independent journalism in the area that finds us interesting, or at least finds us following. Thanks to you. For the reason, have a Merry Christmas and good luck with your red frog.
Yes, yes.
Young lady goes into places that I was going to say fools dare to tread, but only brave people would go there looking after drunk and upset and lost young people in hotspots over Christmas.
Speaking from experience.
Not at all. No. Well, actually, I've seen the work that they do at Blossom Festival. Fantastic. So, reasons to exclude the public are given at page 233. Would somebody like to move that they be? Thank you, Martin. Seconded, Cheryl. We're now in non-public and we will adjourn for lunch. And we'll be at 1:15. Oh, hang on. No, we won't.
12:40.
12:40. Yes.
Can't see for lunch today.